first question I want to ask you is this hearing unfair? Has it been unfair to you?
No.
Thank you. One purpose of security procedures for classified information is to prevent hostile nations from obtaining classified information. Is that fair?
Yes.
And did hostile nations obtain classified information from Secretary Clinton's servers?
I don't know. It's possible, but we don't have direct evidence of that. We couldn't find direct evidence.
I want to, without making this a law school class, I want to try to get into intent. There are various levels of intent in the criminal law, everything from knowingly and willfully doing something all the way down to strict liability. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes.
And in Title 18, most of the criminal laws in Title 18 have the words knowingly and willfully in them, and that is the standard typically that United States attorneys prosecute under.
Most do. Unlawfully, knowingly, and willfully is our standard formulation for charging a case.
And there are also a variety of others between the knowingly, willfully standard and the strict liability standard. And many, like environmental crimes, have a much lower standard because of the toxic materials that are at risk of harming individuals. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about this particular statute, 18 U.S.C. 1924. I take it we could all agree, or you and I can agree on a couple of the elements. Secretary Clinton was an employee of the United States.
Correct.
And as the result of that employment, she received classified information.
Correct.
And there's no doubt about those two elements. Now, I don't know whether the next element is one element or two, but it talks about knowingly remove such materials without authority and with the intent to retain such material at an unauthorized location. So I'm going to treat those as two separate parts of the intent element. First of all, do you see the word willfully anywhere in the statute?
I don't.
Okay. And that would indicate to you that there is a lower threshold for intent?
No, it wouldn't.
Why?
Because we often, as I understand the Justice Department's practice and judicial practice, will impute to any criminal statute at that level with a knowingly also a requirement that you know that you're involved in criminal activity of some sort, a general mens rea requirement.
So, and you would apply that same standard to environmental crimes?
No, if it specifically says it's a negligence-based crime, I don't think a judge would impute that.
But Congress specifically omitted the word willfully from this statute, and yet you are implying the word willfully in the statute. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what the statute does say is knowingly remove such materials without authority. Is it fair that she knew that she didn't have authority to have this server in her basement?
Yes, that's true.
And she knew that she was receiving materials, classified information, in the emails that she received on her BlackBerry and other devices.
I can't answer. I'm hesitating as a prosecutor because it's always to what level of proof. I do not believe there's evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that she knew she was receiving classified information in violation of the requirements.
But that's not my question.
Evidence of that.
That's my question. My question, in fairness, is did she know that she was receiving information on the servers at her location?
Oh, so I'm sorry. Yeah, of course, yes. She knew she was using her email system.
And as Secretary of State, she also knew that she would be receiving classified information.
Yes, in general.
Okay. And did she then have the intent to retain such material at an unauthorized location? She retained the material that she received as Secretary of State at her server in her basement, and that was unauthorized.
You're asking me, did she have and I'm going to ask you the burden of proof question in a second, but did she have the intent to retain classified information on the server, or just to retain any information on the server?
Well, we've already established that she knew as Secretary of State that she was going to receive classified information in her emails. And so did she retain such information that she received as Secretary of State on her servers in her basement?
She did, in fact. There is, in my view, not evidence beyond certainly probable cause. There's not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that she knew she was receiving classified information or that she intended to retain it on her server. There's evidence of that. But when I said there's not clear evidence of intent, that's what I meant. I could not, even if the Department of Justice would bring that case, I could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt those two elements.
Thank you very much.
Thank the gentleman. Now I'll go to the gentlewoman